Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have Jason Moore with us. He is the author of Both and it's a wonderful book about worship. I really encourage you to check it out. Before we begin, Jason, first of all, I want to say thank you for joining us today.
It is good to be with you.
And the other question, the first question I want to start out is, why don't you tell us how do I say this? What do you do?
That's
What's your ministry?
that's a great question. If I ever figure it out, I'll let you know. No, I do a lot of different things. I got my start in ministry way back in the late '90s at Ginghamsburg United Methodist Church as a graphic artist, media producer. So a lot of my career has been spent there. I went to art school. In fact, the school that I went to and graduated from in 1998 or 99. 98. I am actually teaching online so I do a little bit of teaching. I've written 12 books, both and being the most recent. I do a lot of coaching and consulting. So I've been helping churches the last 3 years kind of think about their hybrid ministry strategies. How do we do worship in a way that is both for physically gathered people and digitally gathered people in a way where no one feels like they're left out or an afterthought? So that's what that book is about. I do usually about 30 to 40 speaking engagements every year on a range of topics from worship planning and worship design to hospitality to revitalization and hybrid worship. And then over the last, 6 months or so, I've been doing a lot around AI, which is what we're going to talk about today. But how do we use AI tools in the church? So, I have my hats in a lot of different, or I wear a lot of different hats. And I guess I'm just a Renaissance man. I do a little bit of everything.
So, AI, first of all, let's just say, what in the world is AI?
That's a great first question. People ask me that all the time. Some people aren't even sure what AI stands for. AI stands for artificial intelligence. And it is more or less the simulation of human thinking processes by machines. So it is computers that have, over many, many decades, more or less learned how, in some ways, to think like humans think. Believe it or not, AI has been around since the 60s, even maybe even before that. But the first chat bot was created in I think it was the mid 60s. And so AI has been with us for a long time. Obviously, it wasn't very sophisticated, but it has continued to grow. And we've seen some really incredible advances in the last, it's been about 13 months now since the first version of what is called ChatGPT, which is a chat bot. A lot of people have heard of that, came out, and it really kind of changed the game quite a bit for everybody. So, um, AI is the simulation of human thinking, and right now it requires humans to be involved in it, and humans are driving it. But I think ultimately the goal and hope, which is maybe a scary goal and hope, is that someday it may function on its own. So I think I can understand some of the fears there.
So, just looking at artificial intelligence, what are some ways that people can, or church leaders can use it in a ministry setting?
So this is what I have spent so much of the last year thinking about, working on. I'm actually working on a book right now on this topic, which I hope to have finished here before the end of the year. Um, First of all, I can understand the fear that people have in the church. But there are so many opportunities and ways that I think the church can tap into these resources. Um, but the first step to really doing it is to overcome the fear and just start playing with it a little bit. I mentioned that I got my start in ministry as a graphic artist. I went to art school and all of that. And I was really afraid that AI was going to eliminate the need for me and what I do. But uh, to talk about some of the things that we can do with it, First of all, these chatbots are really incredible at helping you to clarify your ideas, what you're writing. It will actually take instruction and write things that can save you time. So, some of my favorite ways to use AI right now is in sermon preparation, not having it write a sermon for you, but to have it help you clarify. So, I love to ask AI, here's a topic that I'm writing on. What do you need to know from me to help me clarify these ideas? And it'll ask you questions that you wouldn't think to ask. Who's your target audience? What scripture are you preaching on? What are related scriptures? All sorts of things like that. So it's great for helping us to craft messages. I love to use it for series design. So it's great at helping you identify themes and scriptures. And the other day I was doing something with it where I asked it to pick out hymns from the United Methodist hymnal, provide me with uh, hymn numbers and a synopsis of why it picked that hymn for the particular topic that I was working on, and it was incredible. It listed off all the hymn numbers. Here's the reason that it lines up with what you're talking about, and so on. I asked it to do the same thing for Hollywood movie clips. Like if I wanted to use a movie clip in my sermon, it outlined the movie, the scene, described how it related to the scripture and text. So it's great at being sort of a creative partner.
Mhm.
Um, it is good at looking at data and analyzing it. So analyzing our attendance trends, things like giving reports, and when do people tend to give more, or when do they show up to things, all sorts of things like that. Um, One of my favorite examples that I share when I'm doing a training is that AI now can clone your voice. I mean, you give it permission, and can translate into another language the things that you're saying. So if you're trying to do a multicultural type ministry, I have a video that I show at my training where I talked to the camera for a moment, had AI translate it into Spanish, and then using deepfake technology, it actually moves your lips so it looks like you are natively speaking Spanish. Now, I wouldn't want to trick anybody into thinking that's my native language, but I do think that if I'm in a church where I am trying to reach migrant workers or people that don't natively speak English, using a service like that is incredible. I guess the last one I would share, and there's so many more I could, but the last one that I really love, and this was the one that scared me the most in the beginning, was that it really has this incredible ability to create imagery that you give it a description of what you want. So I want Jesus walking on the Sea of Galilee at nighttime, or at sunset as a silhouette, and it will generate that image for you, an image that you really wouldn't be able to find in a stock photo library, and that you'd have to pay 30 or 40 bucks for. With Chat GPT that now has DALL-E built in, which is an image generator, or using Bing, which will generate images for free for you using Bing's AI resources. If you have a copy of Canva, which has a free nonprofit license, can do this. And so churches that don't have access to someone like me, a graphic artist, can now do more with imagery, whether that's for their bulletin or their website, or if they're using screens in worship. So I get really excited about the fact that um, small and medium-sized churches without large budgets now have access to things that would have required staff positions or skilled positions and so on. And so those are just some of the things that why I'm such a proponent of using AI in ministry.
Question about one of the things you mentioned, the mimicking your or changing your voice so it can do the language translation. That's pretty amazing. So would it be like you could submit? I'm just my question was, would you be able, like if you had done like a sermon, would you could be able to do that with a already made video and change it?
Yes. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely. Yeah, there is a service called HeyGen, Heygen, and it will let you upload a video of you talking, and it basically takes the exact same video of you talking and then goes back and translates it to whatever language. It's got multiple languages, and then again, it will even move your lips so that they look like they're saying the Spanish natively. I go to a church here in Dayton, Ohio, or just outside Dayton, called Mosaic, and we are a intentionally multicultural church. Every week in worship, you hear scripture read in another language, or a prayer offered in Spanish and then English, or um, we French or German or whatever. We use language regularly in our services. And my pastor is super excited about the fact that he's always had to have somebody else read those things. And so he told me the other day, he said, I'm planning on recording the scripture with me speaking it in English and then letting the AI translate. We'll tell the congregation that. But it's a pretty cool thing that it's part of the DNA of the church, because Dayton is a sanctuary city. So we, for a long time, had English as a second language classes and all that. So we have a lot of people from different cultures attending our church. And so being able to translate messages and prayers and all that into natively into different languages, and even have our pastor be the one doing it, is a pretty cool thing as far as we're concerned. It'll be neat for people to hear their pastor speak the prayer in their language.
I think that's so neat. Like, I've been doing Canva and playing around with some of their AI stuff, and I played with the scripture, like put a scripture in English and then changed it over to like Spanish. I sent it to a friend, and they were telling me how completely amazingly accurate it was, and so
Yes.
it's just neat to be able to see that you can do it from a video standpoint, and it's one of those things that just branches out the gospel, right? And
Yeah.
it's that's pretty amazing. We talked about you mentioned some great advantages. Are there any other advantages to using AI in a ministry setting?
Yeah, I mean, one of the areas where I am most excited is I have been doing a lot of AI training for different annual conferences and things. So I go do a full day on what is AI, how do we use it responsibly, what are some of the ethical considerations, what are the best tools, all those kind of things. And I've had a number of small church pastors, rural pastors, pastors who are nearing retirement come back to me after the training and say, I learned so much, and like I am super excited that I can do these things and they don't cost very much money. So there probably will be a day that they monetize this in a different way, but as it's so new, they're wanting people to use it. So there's a free version of ChatGPT. A lot of these image generators I've been talking about have a free tier or a free version that you can use. Um, it's great for it can speed things up. Like um, I would not ever have AI write a sermon for you, but I would totally be okay with having AI write announcements. I have one of the things that I did this fall, the Holston Conference of the Methodist Church invited me to create a an Advent series with them. So I went, I led a day of training, and then the pastors worked around tables and they dreamed up some themes and things, and then I went and I created all the graphics and all of that using AI to help. And one of the things that we wanted to include in these every week of Advent was both non-traditional calls to worship and traditional calls to worship. Well, I've spent most of my ministry working in churches that are non-traditional. So I'm pretty used to doing kind of the spoken word, not the back and forth leader people kind of call to worship, but like the setup for our theme for today. I used AI to help me craft some of those things. Our theme was road trip, and it was this image of an old woody wagon vehicle, traveling across the country to go visit, folks for Christmas. But in the same way, Jesus had this perilous journey, or Mary and Joseph had this perilous journey for the arrival of Jesus into the world. But anyway, I wrote these sort of spoken word introductions, and I thought, we need some traditional calls to worship as well. So I grabbed a couple of traditional call to worship calls to worship that used kind of standard leader people, something that you'd see in the hymnal. And I showed that to AI and I said, okay, so I want you to look at this and look at the structure of it. And then I would really love for you to help me craft some traditional calls to worship based on that style, but using the same information in the non-traditional ones that I wrote. And it did an incredible job of taking what I had already written, reformatting it in leader and people. And I had to make a little tweaks here and there, but it's great for things like that. So a skill set that I haven't really exercised all that much, I allowed the AI to analyze what that was, take what I had done creatively, and then reformat it in a way that worked for that particular style. So it's a great partner when you are doing creative work. If you can't think of a good illustration or theme or metaphor, this is a silly example, but I just did a Secret Santa party with the Fresh Expressions USA or North America group, and we had the Secret Santa exchange, and my the person that I got their name loves jokes, loves corny jokes. So I used Chat GPT to write 30 dad jokes, and then I printed them out on cards and made this little card set for him. And I mean, it was incredible what it came up with. I mean, they weren't all good, and some of them I couldn't use at all because they were terrible. But when you have a conversation with AI and you help it understand what the goal is, what its role is. In the Methodist Church, I think if we were saying, I want you to write from a Wesleyan perspective, a prayer for the first week of Advent, and here is what I'm trying to capture in the sermon and all that kind of thing. Again, I rarely ever take anything as it is that it gives me, but it gives me a good start or will help me to um, uh, have some of the language that I might not otherwise have. So, for certain tasks, AI is a great way to get to spend more time on your sermon and less time writing announcements, and maybe even less time crafting prayers all the way from scratch from the beginning, and even things like calls to worship and all of that. So I think it can actually speed up our process and help us to focus on the things that only humans can do well.
Awesome. So you named several different tools. What are if can you think of any other great tools that you could recommend to church leaders to explore, especially you mentioned small rural church. This is something that they could do.
Yeah,
What maybe something in that kind of price range too that would be
sure.
easy to access.
Yeah. Well, the good news is a lot of them right now are free to use. So I've mentioned several times, ChatGPT is sort of the leader right now. They were kind of out ahead of the game. There's a free tier that does a great job that you can use and it doesn't cost anything. There is an app called Bard, B-A-R-D, from Google. They just got a big update, and it is a chat bot very similar to ChatGPT. And right now it's completely free and it will generate images as well. There's another one called Claude, Claude, I think, Claude.ai, Claude.ai. Claude.ai. It's a chat bot that is also free. Um, if you don't have a subscription to Canva, there's a free tier for nonprofits, and I think every church ought to take advantage of that. There are a bunch of AI tools within um, uh, Canva that will help you to generate images and do all sorts of different things, help you create great presentations. Even if if you don't have screens in your sanctuary, but you want to up your game where hybrid worship is concerned and include graphics in that broadcast, that's a great thing. Also, this is an AI resource, but I'll mention it. If you want to take your hybrid worship game up, there is a program called OBS, Open Broadcast Software. I think it's obsproject.org, if I remember right. Google it, you'll find it. It's a free software that lets you take like your phone, plug it into your computer, and stream from that to Facebook, which means that you can then incorporate PowerPoint and other graphics and stuff like that into what you're doing rather than just going straight out of your phone. That then means that if you're to use AI tools, you could incorporate those into your live stream worship or even your recorded worship. Another favorite resource of mine, and I think there's a free tier, and there's a very inexpensive tier that's only $5 a month, is called 11 Labs, spelled out 11 labs.io, I believe, 11labs.io. 11 Labs is the voice cloning software that I talked about. And what's really cool about that is that you can have like really inspiring sounding scripture videos where maybe you take some still imagery of a forest or mountaintops or whatever, and you can put the scripture into there, and it's got all these voices built into it that sound 100% believable, that you wouldn't know they were AI. And so now you can have professional sounding voiceover that would be something you'd set up, your scripture for the morning. You can also take your own voice and clone it. And so you give it some samples. And where this would be helpful, I think, is if you wanted to have like a weekly podcast where your congregation could engage in some reflection questions on your sermon. You could take your sermon that you preached on Sunday, put it into Chat GPT, say to Chat GPT, I would like for you to create a 2-minute script from this sermon, include 3 reflection questions, some additional scripture reading. ChatGPT can take all of that information and actually create something that's really good. You could then take that and put it into into 11 Labs with your own voice and have it generate a 3-minute script. If we had more time, I could show you what this looks like. But then let's say on Wednesday you put out a little 3-minute podcast that is your voice using your sermon material, but aided by AI. I think I would probably say in there somewhere, this podcast assisted by AI, so that people don't think that I actually recorded it with my own voice. But you don't even have to have a great microphone for that. So it's something that you could have a weekly check-in with your people. So I get excited by the idea that AI could automate some things that would help people go deeper into their faith, would allow us, if we need to spend more time visiting people at the hospital, maybe we could give up writing announcements and various aspects of worship that I think we could allow AI to assist with, not your sermon, but other things. And that would allow us to do more ministry in other ways, and that we wouldn't have to spend a whole lot of money to do it either. So those are some of my favorite resources: ChatGPT, Bard, Claude, 11 Labs, and there are more and more springing up all the time. So it's just going to it's going to be more and more prominent as time goes on.
You so much, Jason. And for those who are watching, if they wanted to maybe, because I know you're going to be doing some AI cohorts and different trainings, if they wanted to be in contact with you, where would they need to go?
Well, I am leading some AI cohorts right now. So I have 20 churches right now going through an AI cohort. 6 months of cohorts. We meet once a month. They get an hour one-on-one session with me. I have some bonus sessions where I have other experts in AI who are doing hour-long trainings for us. There's a whole bunch of discounts that I've negotiated with some AI vendors. So signing up gives you all those things. If you're interested in more information about signing up for the cohort, this doesn't sign you up, but it'll give you, put you on the list, and you can get more information about it. You can go to bit.ly/AI cohort. And that you just fill out the form there. You'll see some information about what's included and the costs associated with it and all that kind of stuff. And then I'll send you an email. And if it's something you'd like to be a part of, we can get you signed up. The next round of cohorts will start in late January. So it's a 6-month process, and I'm trying to teach people all the various aspects of AI and how to use it well.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. And thank you for those who are watching. I hope this blessed you and it educated you on a really interesting topic. So thank you again, Jason.
No problem. Thanks for having me.